Hello, and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers. This is episode number 88 on ebayscavengers.com. And today, Jay and I are talking about what's going on in our store this week.
As we do every week.
As we do every week.
Yeah, it's
That's
good.
True.
It's good to always look back and see how it went. Like last night we went to an auction, Saturday night. We do that, a couple times a month.
Yeah, it's fun. It's work and it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it before. Scavenging isn't just a job. It's fun for us.
Right.
I think we were scavenging. Well, I know we were scavenging even before we were even selling on eBay. It was just fun to find cool things and,
Yeah.
It's funny, once we found eBay, we figured out, wow, we could make a living off of this.
I think that's why we figured it out, because we did have so much fun going to thrift stores, finding stuff, but we didn't need all that stuff, so.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about it now. I guess, I think 5 years ago, we'd always be stopping in at these stores, but I feel like I'd rarely ever buy anything because...
What were we going to do with it?
Yeah, I'd go and appreciate it, but I didn't want it because I'm not a hoarder. I don't have a lot of stuff of my own.
Although a lot of people think we are hoarders because they're like, why are they buying all this stuff all the time?
But the auction was cool. It was one of those auctions where, man, people were paying crazy prices.
Yeah, I think there were some hoity-toity people there because people were paying high prices for stuff that doesn't usually go for that much.
Yeah, we kind of live we've said this before, we live in a rural area, and I guess sometimes at these auctions you'll get people from the city who come out to the auctions and they're willing to pay prices on paintings and vintage stuff that, basically they're paying what we would sell for it on eBay.
Right. I mean, the thing is, they're not paying a ton of money for it. Not New York prices or something, but they're bidding on the stuff we want for cheaper, but they're paying the price that it's worth. So that's what's hard for us.
But we still got some cool stuff. I got a neon light, like a vintage 60s or a 70s.
It's a neon beer light. It's for a bar. Those are really hard to find in good shape, and they usually go for a lot of money at the auctions. So we don't usually get them. But you bought yours for $50.
Yeah.
How much do you think you'll make on it?
I'll probably make $200 on it.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a nice one.
Not bad.
It's a nice color and everything. So that was fun.
It's one of those examples of, being willing to pay a little bit more for something, but then, make a couple $100. So
yeah.
It's different than paying $1 for something to make $30 on it. So it's
But the reason we went to the auction mostly was to buy artwork.
Right.
This auction, for some reason, they have a lot of fancy artwork every time. Prints, paintings, cross stitch, very, very old cross stitch.
Right. And we're actually going to talk about that in the next podcast of how or why we buy and sell art. So
so that'll be the podcast after this. So that's actually perfect timing that we went to that auction last night.
So this week we went to kind of like an estate sale kind of place, and they had a lot of, it's perfume.
Yeah, they had this whole tray of vintage perfume, and I remember Mikey talked about this too. I mean, we both had really good luck selling vintage or discontinued perfume.
He taught us that. Bought that stuff
because he said he was into a really certain cologne in high school, so he would look for that, which is not something that I ever was into. So I didn't know to look for those things. But I mean, I remember. A year ago or so, the lady who sold me this perfume used to sell me jars of perfume for 25-50 cents, but they've upped their prices to $1.
But we were willing to buy the whole thing, and so we bought whatever, the whole tray of old perfume for $12.
I think it was $12 for all of it. There's probably about maybe 15 or 20 bottles,
and you have it up. If you have some bottles up for $30, but then if you have some up for over $100.
Because some of it, I think some of it is purely decorative for some people, because 2 of the bottles are definitely from the 30s or 40s, and they still have perfume in them. They look gorgeous. They have a Bakelite top, they're beautiful. I don't think the perfume is still good, but it's more decorative. But there are some, if you find Yves Saint Laurent perfume from the 80s, it's still good. And people pay a very good price for that stuff.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. And
so that's fun.
And at estate sales, those are things that some people pass over.
Yeah.
Because when someone dies, there's always like a medicine cabinet or an area where that stuff is hidden away, and people just don't really buy that stuff. They kind of pass over it.
Well, it looks junky, and it just looks like cosmetics.
Right.
The highest price perfume I ever sold, which was last year, I sold this tiny half-ounce bottle of this discontinued perfume cologne it was $165.
Not
I
bad.
sold that for. So that like blew my mind. And that was one of the first lots of stuff that I got. So ever since then, I'm like always looking for it.
Yep. So we took our taxes, our numbers, to our accountant this week, which we are very proud of ourselves to get that done. And, and we've mentioned it before, people write us, how do we do our taxes? Because it's a lot of numbers. Because, when you're running your own eBay business, it's all about expenses.
Yeah.
So, and we've mentioned it before, GoDaddy bookkeeping, or it
used to be called Outright, but
Right.
now it was bought by GoDaddy. So
we do not use or pay for a lot of these services, but this is the one service that we just can't do. It's without.
Jay asked me, he said, if we didn't do it this way with Outright or GoDaddy bookkeeping, would you have been able to do it? And I just was like, no.
Right.
I just can't do it without it.
Because it just helps us, and it saves us its money with the accountant, too, who will charge us or charge anyone by the hour. We bring him all of the numbers already. It's broken down, and all the totals of, our shipping costs, our travel costs, our inventory costs, all that stuff. So really, he only charges us for a couple hours to, do our taxes.
I remember when we first started doing our taxes, when we just had our tech business. This is hilarious, right? Actually, it was great because our accountant was this young guy. He was younger than me. He did work for his dad. We actually went to Burning Man with him. That's San Francisco for you right there. We went to Burning Man with our accountant. So I literally handed him a big fat manila envelope full of receipts.
Right.
That is what I did. I did categorize them.
Right.
But I was like, here's our taxes.
Yeah. I mean,
but
I know some people might be skeptical of, plugging in all your bank information and credit card information and PayPal all into a service, just because, there are more and more stories of hackers and all that. But really, that's just the way for that we know to make it all doable.
It's just online bookkeeping. If you hired a bookkeeper to do this for you, you'd lose so much money.
So anyway, that's a plus. It's for us. So we're just waiting for a number from him. Sometime it's this coming week of how much we owe for 2013.
Right, because we didn't pay our quarterly taxes, which we should have, but we had to use that money for other things. So.
Yeah, we decided instead of giving it to the government to hold on to, that we would just and use it to, we're doing other things and we'll pay it off.
We'll pay it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing was I got one of those policy violation emails from eBay this week. It's like the dreaded MC106 policy violation or whatever email, where they end your listing, which is annoying because then you have no record to relist it and change it. But the problem was they said I had a link policy violation where I had outside links because I linked to our Twitter account.
Right. So on the eBay page itself, you had a link to a Twitter account.
In my description template, I'm like, follow me on Twitter. Granted, I've had that on there for 5 years and never had a problem.
And plus, they're on every single item we have.
3,100 items.
So Orion freaked out thinking she was going to have all of our listings taken off for that.
Jay had to literally talk me down. I was like seriously about to freak.
But then
the good thing is only one of them got taken down. It was just a pair of shoes. And then I realized and remembered that in the bulk editor, you can do something called, it's a lot like in word processing, it's called find and replace. So you can plug in, your HTML code, find this link, this Twitter link, and either replace it with, a different link that's only in eBay, like your follow me on eBay link or whatever, or just delete it. So I did that with a couple listings. So what I need to do is go through the bulk lister and do the find and replace. So it is possible to change that in my 3,100 listings.
Did you do it all at the same time? Or do you
well, you can only do 200 listings at once through the bulk editor. You know what? I have to fact check that. I might be able to. So.
But that is cool, though, because we've always been worried about, since we do still use a template, which I know eBay seems to be pushing people away from, but we just like how it puts things up on the screen. It's better and does the info. So because sometimes we feel our template starts feeling old, so we could change things?
Yeah, you could. You could. Like if I wanted to add a new banner, like with links on it to, our store and stuff, which actually I already have. But if some listings didn't have that, I could add it in. So it's a little bit nerdy.
And so does it do HTML and all that stuff?
Yeah, it did HTML for me. So
cool.
Anyway, that was a good relief.
So one of our longtime listeners, he sent a list of things that he says he's been starting to buy and sell, things that I would not have thought of.
Yeah, so this is like the craziest thing that I never thought anyone would buy, which are 13-inch CRT televisions, like the old school non-flat screen ones.
Which is amazing because I see those things
all the time
on the sides of the street. Our local thrift store has a big sign that says, "We will not accept TVs."
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I see them at yard sales. So it'll be interesting to actually possibly try and pick one up because they sell for over $100.
I am shocked.
Especially the ones that have a VCR included in it.
Yes, the combo. Those sell for like $150, $180. And I just think it's people who still use the old technology, And
maybe people that still, they buy VHS tapes real cheap, and they
like I always see like VHS tapes for little kids and stuff. So I wonder if they just stick them in. But I don't know. That's kind of expensive for a little. But I don't know.
Yeah, if you were just to like throw, I don't know. So anyway, we're gonna try it since obviously the tough part of that would be to pack and ship it.
Yeah.
But we are not afraid to pack and ship anything.
We can try. Also this week I had someone leave a neutral feedback, and it was a guy who bought a shirt. He claimed it was too small, or he said, I think it's smaller than you said, but we had all the measurements, obviously. We offered him a full refund, said he could return it, all that stuff. He never said anything. He left neutral feedback that said, this item was smaller than I thought. Seller offered full refund. So that's bizarre, right? He was new. So obviously he left a neutral feedback, not understanding that sucks for us.
But the nice thing is, instead of wanting to go to a war, it's with this person.
Yeah.
We've developed a system of how we handle this. And Ryan just called eBay.
Yep.
Guy was very nice, right? Mm-hmm. He read through, because we'd had a short conversation. It's with him through eBay on messages, and he was like, "Yeah, of course,
yeah."
I'll take it off.
He took it off. Although his advice to me, which kind of sucks, is that all the shirt measurements should be up in the item specifics. So that's another place that you need to add item specifics, all your measurements up there. I started doing it because I'm like, if someone's going to give me negative or neutral feedback or say I didn't have the measurements, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
If you're new to eBay, and it's not a bad thing, it's just a thing that happens, every year they update, they change, they tweak, and of how things should be done. And so it's like every year you slowly start to learn a new way of doing things.
I mean, the guy looked at my HTML template and he's like, this looks beautiful. However, everything should be up in the item specifics. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
great.
I guess that's just,
The next thing is we wanted to mention that on the sidebar of our blog, you can subscribe through email. I don't know if people subscribe on iTunes or if they just like press refresh on the blog whenever, but a cool thing that we have on the sidebar is you just type in your email And whenever we post a blog post, it'll just email you.
And this is just something new because anyone who's subscribing through iTunes will automatically show up there if we do an audio podcast.
Right.
But we're starting to make more YouTube videos of packing stuff and other things. So if you're only subscribed through iTunes, you aren't going to get this stuff. If
Right.
you're interested, that's one way to do it. Just go to ebayscavengers.com and put your email in there. And obviously, we don't spam you or sell your information.
So that is a good segue for me to say we did make another video this week of me packing a very delicate glass ceiling fixture lamp. That should be interesting for anyone who's afraid to buy glass lamps.
Our idea is we're going to do this packing series of videos. Since we're packing things every day,
Yeah.
we thought we would just document the things that people might learn from because these are things that we see all the time that sell for pretty cheap, mainly because other people like us don't want to buy them because they don't want to ship them, and then other people don't buy them because, they're really kind of specialty items,
Right, and we've been selling so many lamps in the past couple weeks. Like I've packed so many of them that it's really not a bad idea to pack them.
Yeah, I think if you have the right eye, there are so many lamps and lights and sconces that you can find that at least we find. And once we start to realize that lights are expensive,
Yes.
and because you either go to a Lowe's and buy lights and they're really cheap.
And they're still expensive.
Yeah, I mean, but they're cheaply made, and I think
Yeah.
a lot of them are kind of ugly. There's not a big, you can't buy a lot of different kinds. Or then you jump to these kind of specialty lighting stores, and those places are expensive.
Super expensive. There's this place in Portland, Oregon that we went to that we couldn't not buy stuff called Rejuvenation. Oh my God, they're like, and we bought everything on the outlet sale,
Yeah.
anything that was discounted. But
Right.
my God, I can't believe how expensive. But they're beautiful lights. But you can find vintage lights because
Yeah.
all their stuff is designed after vintage lights.
And if someone's redoing their house and they're doing it in a nice way, people aren't afraid to spend $200 or $300 for a nice sconce,
Yep.
just because it's a permanent part of your house and
Right.
it's going to look good. So we're finding that those people are willing to look on eBay and buy from us. So we'll buy $1 light and we'll sell it for almost $200.
Yeah, so lights are great.
It's the shipping that I think might be holding people up from buying those. And this video we put up, we show you how to pack a big old lamp.
And I just wanted to mention the labels that I use for eBay for printing my labels. I buy them on Amazon, and what's cool about these labels is they're half a sheet each. So once you print your 2 labels, you can shred this paper. That's what I do. So it's this whole recycling thing. So the backing paper, I shred it and then I use it as packing material. So I have a great heavy duty shredder that I use like crazy. So I'm actually going to link to that too, because it's really nice not to waste that stuff.
Yeah. And we've noticed some eBay people we've seen on YouTube, they actually buy a newsprint,
blank newsprint.
It's newsprint instead of it using its newspapers, which is cool. But because I guess if you're worried about the newsprint getting on something that you're trying to sell or trying to ship, but most of the stuff we ship is already in a small box inside of a box, so a newspaper doesn't really
the
matter.
great thing about newsprint too, it comes in bigger sheets,
right?
So you can really sometimes the newspaper just isn't big enough, so that's a good thing. But
so we're gonna think about buying it. I think it comes in 25-pound lots.
I might buy some just because I go through newspaper so fast,
right? And someone online said that you can go to a local a newspaper company and wherever it's print their newspapers, and they'll sell you the end part of a newspaper, a roll. It's too small for them to keep on using it, so they'll sell it to you to.
Yeah, and we have a local newspaper, and one of our friends is a reporter there, so we could probably figure something out there.
We'll scavenge it.
Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to mention, I've been looking at a lot of other people's store, people who comment or people who we've seen on other blogs. And what I'm noticing is they're selling their stuff for really, really cheap. Almost too cheap. Like, I feel like there are a lot of people just giving a lot of stuff away. So I just see things where I'm like, I can't believe they're charging like $16 best offer for this thing, and they took an offer with free shipping. Like, I don't know how anyone's making any money.
Well, I'll do a caveat to that. I think that it is important to charge more for items if you think they're quality, but you have to, number one, be willing to be patient.
Right.
So if I hear some people say that they don't like something to sit in their store for more than 30 days, and then if it sits in their store for more than 30 days and they mark down the price and they do best offer and they're ready to go. I mean, I guess we've always said our strategy is different, where we don't have a problem storing items. We store it and forget it. It costs us, a couple cents a month to keep as a listed, but instead of selling it for $12, we're willing to hold on to it and sell it for $40.
Yeah, maybe that's why it's just a different. But I mean, literally, there are people who are like, I sold this thing for $5.
Right.
I'm like, what?
I mean, I think the other caveat to that is that holding on to something really only works if you have a large inventory. So that way something's going to sell every day.
Right.
If you're only keeping 100, 200 things in at your store at any one time, you kind of have to price it where things are moving, because if you don't have a large enough inventory to kind of attract the search terms, that's what it's all about, is like you're trying to get out as many search terms out there as possible. That's going to catch some Google's search engine.
Although I will, my last bit of advice for that is, don't be afraid to charge a little more for your stuff, though. If you think it's quality, I mean, just don't be afraid to put the price up and make an offer if you think you could get a better offer for it. But
there's one girl who lives in our region here that we see her at the thrift store, and she'll be buying stuff. She mainly sells like vintage. It's clothes. She has a very small inventory. Yeah. And she puts everything on auction. She starts at 99 cents, and every week I'll look at her store. She mostly sells her items for 99 cents.
I need to write to her and tell her what to do or something.
And I feel like the thing is she, I believe, is trying to just make enough to pay her bills, so she's got to sell stuff, and so she's trying, and every once in a while she'll get a bidding war, and a piece of clothing might sell for $25 or something.
Oh my god!
But it's it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. She puts a lot of work into it. You can tell.
Right.
So I don't know.
So we see people's stuff. If you're taking good pictures and it's good, it's quality. If you're willing to be patient, I would say ask for a little bit more.
I agree.
Yeah. This, we did an interview with Katie Burt, I don't know, a month ago or something, about selling on FBA, Amazon FBA, where, if you buy stuff in bulk and you ship it to Amazon, and then Amazon will ship it out. It's for you. And a lot of that stuff is books. Or it's this thing where people are going around to like Walmart and other kind of like retail stores, and they have their smartphone with these scanners. One of them is called
Profit Bandit. It's a barcode scanner,
right? And so they're just going around to like the clearance section or things on sales, and this app will tell you how much you can get on Amazon.
Right.
And so if people find that, they can flip it, they'll buy it in bulk.
They'll buy all of them.
Right. And it's called, I didn't know this, retail arbitrage.
Right.
And I'm going to link to a video where this guy talks about it, where he kind of explains how it works. And it's such an interesting concept. Like there's this whole, it seems like there's this whole scene of people who go around and basically they like undercut a Walmart and places like that, Target, because, you know, they're trying to, you know, get rid of inventory.
Right.
And then these people can sell it for more online. But this guy says that he thinks, or I know he says he knows that these stores are starting to get smart and that they're going to develop a system where they don't dump inventory anymore, because, you know, if someone can sell it for more online, then they think, well, they could too.
They should sell it online.
So, I don't know.
Well, I think he also says, like, when you go in and you're scanning, that people at the stores will bug you or something.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying there are times where, like, security guards will come up to you and ask you to stop that or leave. I mean, it's not...
That is so crazy.
I mean, it's not illegal, but it is private property. I don't know. It's an interesting...
Weird. You're like, I'm about to purchase a whole bunch of things. I should be allowed to do that.
I just think it's interesting because it's like capitalism to, like, the extreme. It's like, you know, Walmart's this huge corporation, but then there are all these little small people coming in trying to, like, beat Walmart. It's kind of
so weird.
Amazing. But in my mind, though, you know, this goes to the fact that buying and selling vintage stuff and it's one-of-a-kind items, I don't think that will ever go away, you know, because this has always been happening where people go and they buy old things, one here, one there, and you can always sell those items, you know.
You don't have to compete on price.
Yeah, as far as retail arbitrage, where if you're buying like 100 automatic toothbrush things, I mean, I think that, I don't know. I think stores will get smarter, but who knows?
Well, I mean, for the unique vintage one-of-a-kind items, I mean, you are competing not so much on quantity and price. You're competing on, like, the item and the quality of it. You know, you're competing on the interest and the bizarreness and the uniqueness of it. So, to me, that's much more fun.
Right. It's interesting. So, if you go to ebayscavengers.com, I will link to that video, and he explains it much better than I do. At least it helped me give me more information about this idea of selling on Amazon and its retail arbitrage, as he says it. All right, this part of the podcast, we're going to answer its questions that people have sent in. So if you go to the blog and on the right-hand sidebar, there's a way to send us a question or a comment, and you know, we'll try to answer it if we can.
Okay, the first question is from Florida Treasure Chest, and they ask, could you address the need for offering alternative shipping methods to the buyer? For example, a small item might fit in a USPS envelope, but there's a chance that it might get crushed. If this is a new item that someone wants to give as a gift, they might want to pay extra to have it shipped in a box. This would apply to small new items such as a keychain or other novelty items that have their own retail packaging. My advice is, yes, you need to take into account, I mean, something could weigh 1 ounce, but if it's delicate or small or could get crushed, you want to be able to put it in a box. Now, if you have a plain brown box, that can still go first class if it's under 13 ounces. So that's great. But, like, for example, when I sell a big felt, you know, fitted fedora, that weighs only like 10 ounces. But I need to put it in a box because it's going to get crushed. You can't just put it in a poly mailer and send it first class. So I have to send those priority. So basically, you're taking those shipping methods into account while you're, you know, listing this thing. So that's my advice. If you have something new in packaging, whatever, and it's, you know, gonna get crushed, well, if you can find a bunch of plain boxes and send it first class, great. If you can't, put it in a priority box, and that's just how you have to.
And I think that we've just learned how much extra to add on when we put the item up online. I mean, normally it's like half a pound or something like that.
Yeah, for the weight of the box.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the next question is...
Amazing tastes.
Amazing taste. I was at the post office dropping off packages last week, and they asked me for my scan sheet. Evidently, this is a sheet you can produce through PayPal shipping so that the carrier doesn't have to scan each package. I ship through eBay. Yes, okay. Do you know if there's a way to get a shipping sheet, scan sheet? So there is a way to do it. My only issue with that is basically you can create a scan sheet. I forget how. I have to look it up. After you do, like, say you do 10 packages in a row. Well, you can get a scan sheet for those 10 packages after they're done. However, my problem is I'll do 10 at night and then stuff sells overnight. And then I have to do like 5 more in the morning. So the scan sheet won't have everything. My person just scans them individually, as much as they might hate me for that. I don't think it's that big a deal. But there is a way to do a scan sheet, either through PayPal or eBay. I'll have to look it up, and I'll try to put a link on the blog. So if you know you're just going to do 5 packages every day, you might be okay.
Someone asked, they don't leave their name, but they say, I'm shopping for a tape gun because pulling the tape off by hand and cutting it with a scissors is getting really old. Which one do we use? So we love our tape gun. We'll link to it on the blog.
I actually have 3 tape guns, so maybe I can send them one. Yeah, I'll link to the tape gun that I use. I can't live without a tape gun, so that would be crazy. The last question about shipping is from Marcus. Let's see, I'm having to deal with my first domestic package that has been lost by USPS. It wasn't worth enough to insure. What are the steps you take when this happens? First of all, everything is worth insuring, especially if you sent it priority mail. You get up to $100 free insurance through priority mail with eBay labels.
How about if it's not?
If your package is lost and it doesn't have insurance, what you can do is take the tracking number, call your post office or bring the tracking number to your post office, see if they can tell you anything about it. Your buyer can take the tracking number to their post office and see if they can tell him anything about it. Other than that, there's not much you can do.
Ultimately, any package that can't get sent to where it needs to go because of its problem it has ends up in Atlanta. And that's where they'll send you the final step, and you can call them and you trying to describe it's what it is. But really, it's a fruitless effort.
It's dead mail. It's called dead mail, and it's the recovery centers in Atlanta.
Because I guess what happens sometimes is if you put a label on there, the label can sometimes come off.
Yep.
And then if you don't have a shipping, a piece of paper inside that has the
address, like a packing slip,
then it's dead. I mean, we don't really do that either.
I'm guilty of doing that. But so a lot of times, if your label gets separated from the package, you'll get the label back in the mail like 3 months later, and they'll say, you can send a form to Atlanta. You'll never get it back. I mean, that's what happens.
But honestly, I think what you need to do is what, as Ryan said, each of you as the buyer and seller, go to your local post office, see if they can do anything, and if they can't, then just give the person back their,
Yep, that's what you have to do.
But like as Ryan said, if you can send it priority mail, you get automatic free insurance. So that's
up
really
to
$100.
The best way. So you got to do that. The next question is from Chronicler. What are your thoughts on the sponsored links at the bottom of eBay listings? These seem to compete directly with what we were trying to sell. If there's any way to opt out of them appearing on your page.
No, I mean, I think this is a great question, because I always thought that too. And really, there isn't anything to do. I mean, eBay.com is owned by a company, and they can do whatever they want. So they've chosen to put all these sponsored ads about that topic all over their page. I mean, they'll even do this thing where they'll show other people's listings that compete with your item as well. And I guess you just have to think like that's just a way it is. And if someone is looking at someone else's pair of shoes, maybe my pair of shoes pops up on that sidebar as well. I guess it's for them. They're just trying to give its buyer as many options as they can, and they get paid per
Yeah.
click. And
it's just funny that it's like you think eBay makes so much money anyway that they have ads on their site. I mean, it's weird. It's like you're there to buy stuff and they're advertising for you to buy stuff. Like, it just seems so crazy to me.
But this is a good reminder, though, that it's so important to make your page or your items look really, really good. Because as this person points out, there's all these other ads, there's other items on the page as well. And so if your item looks kind of shitty, it's going to make a buyer be like, there are all these other things I can buy.
I was looking at like fancy napkin rings today when I woke up, because I have some that I'm selling. 2 people had taken photographs almost completely in the dark. I just laughed. I just had to show Jay. I was like, these people took photos in the dark. I cannot even see the items. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, we actually bought a set of these fancy napkin rings for like $1, and we sold them for like $50.
No, those were place card holders.
Okay, place card holders.
I had these place card holders. They are brass. They're like scallop shaped. And I had like 18 of them, and I bought them for a couple bucks, and I sold them for $50.
And I only bring that up because then Ryan started to search online, and she started to notice that people sell their stuff so cheap.
With horrible photographs.
And so she actually started to put bids on some of these that other people had. I don't think it's ever really worth it to buy from other eBay sellers and try and resell it.
Unless you see a crazy deal, but usually
I think you could do it if you are really into it, because like we said earlier, some people are just giving their stuff away.
Or they don't know what it's worth. They don't care. They take bad photos, so nobody, their photos are sideways, so people can't see it, but it's cool, so... Yeah, I tried it with some place card holders and some napkin rings. People buy that stuff for weddings all the time, so.
Got it. So the next question is Home It's For Good asks, or she says, she loves to sell on eBay because she can have her cats on her lap while she does her work. And
I can't do that because I have a laptop. So.
And she hated her life being in a cubicle, and now she isn't there. And now she loves to sell on eBay because she's at home. It's with her pets. And she says, what kind of pets do we have? And why didn't we do a whole show about pets? And that's cool. I mean, we have 3 cats. In one of our videos, we showed
we showed one of our
orange
cats.
Cat, and I mean, we love being around our cats, and
we love being home and just being able to hang out.
If you have pets that you enjoy, I'd love to hear about it. Put it in the blog comments. Okay, that's awesome.
Okay, so John Stamos from Full House, I'm sure that's not actually him. Asks, do you guys keep a logbook or online log of what you paid for an item? Also, what about paper receipts for taxes? Love you guys.
The answer is no, we don't do a logbook, but I pretty much know how much I buy things for.
Yeah, approximately anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
you could keep a logbook, but once your inventory gets super high, that's really hard to keep track of.
And as far as paper receipts, I mean, we really don't keep paper receipts because we try and buy everything on our cards.
Yeah.
So we have an electronic...
or even with a check. I mean, if you're keeping track of your bank account electronically, like we said before, we use GoDaddy bookkeeping, so all our accounts are automatically brought in there, and that's how we keep track of our receipts.
But obviously we are not tax experts, so if you're concerned about keeping its receipts for taxes, please talk to your own accountant and have a system that will work for you.
Right.
As Mr. Atari says, can you sell its medical equipment on eBay? He had a chance to purchase a complete EKG
defibrillator
machine for $100. Any thoughts? And he said he passed on it. This is a good question because I see this stuff too. The issue is this is one of those things that eBay will flag. Mm-hmm. You need to go and you see what eBay will allow you to sell. Things like an EKG, it's a machine, and those things where they got the paddles where they do a shock, like if someone has a heart attack. That stuff you aren't allowed to sell on eBay. And actually, I've seen them at auctions as well, and they'll only sell to people that have like a certain certificate where you're supposed to only buy it and sell it to a medical doctor, hospital. You aren't, because I guess they don't want like a regular person to buy it and hurt themselves,
Or hurt themselves or try to revive someone and the machine's broken.
Or something like that. So when you start talking about that kind of stuff, you got to be careful.
Mikey tried to sell one last year, and his listing got flagged by eBay, and he couldn't sell it. So we've seen that firsthand, that he was not allowed to sell that.
And like we talked about it last week when we told the story about how we've been buying and selling it's military surplus. We learned that there are some military items that we aren't allowed to sell. We can't sell it to some parts of the world, so we've had to kind of learn what we can and cannot buy and sell.
Right, and sometimes you learn that the hard way, where you put it up and eBay, it gets flagged and they take it down. So Troy asks about our thoughts about the eBay Valet, which is the Sell For Me program, and I'll link to that. We hadn't mentioned this before because we wanted to try it. Basically, you mail in stuff to eBay. Like, I think you've probably seen these services. I think they're called, I forget what they're called, but where you mail in your old, phone or your old camera and they sell it for really cheap, or they just give you money right away. It's kind of like that. But
it's weird. So they send you a thing to ship it, right? Or
right now, like if you go to Sell For Me, you can put in your zip code and you can either drop it off somewhere if you live in the right city. They'll pick it up if you live in a city, or they send you a box with free shipping to mail it to some other person who's going to sell it for you on eBay.
So it's mailed them a bunch of shirts, right?
I haven't mailed them because you request the box and you can't just like print out a label and put it in any box. They send you. I'm still waiting for the box.
Gotcha.
The problem is they say only send stuff that retails for at least $50. So if that's the case, I'm just going to sell it myself. But I think I might try with some high-end, like, men's dress shirts, like Christian Dior, Brooks Brothers. Right. I don't know.
I honestly just don't think that this is something that people, it's like all of us, would ever it's used. Because it seems built for people who want to sell on eBay but don't want to actually take the time to take pictures and stuff. They probably take a big fee. I mean, they say things that don't sell quickly that they either will ship back to you if you pay for it, or they just get rid of it. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like it'd be anything for me to make any kind of money on.
So I thought I'd just do an experiment that we could talk about on the podcast to see what happens. And so once we get that box, we can talk about it more.
Someone asked he'd like to see a video, or she would like to see a video of us taking pictures of our items. And we've talked about, how we take pictures, but that'd be a good idea for a video.
I think we can make a video about taking photos of just all different kinds of items and how we do it.
Okay, the last question is TG. He or she says they've been selling on eBay for a couple of years, but recently found out that her and 450 of her co-workers were laid off from their jobs. Jeez. They got a severance package, which is awesome, but now she's going to sell on eBay full-time. She heard us talk about selling art, and I guess she's got an eye and likes to buy art, but her question is, since she's not an expert, how do you know what to buy? Since a lot of stuff isn't signed and she only has a small amount of space. So this is a great segue to our next podcast that we're about to do about buying and selling art. It's something we love doing, and we'll talk about how we do it.
Yeah, so we have lots of tips. We are not experts either, so that is it's just us learning trial by fire. So we'll share some of that stuff with you guys.
Cool. So go to ebayscavengers.com to find out all of the links we've been putting up and to jump in the comments and go to the next podcast.
Bye.